Hello everybody, Louis DeAngelis here on Status Coup. Today is May 17th. Today is Wednesday. We've got... Oh, I am hearing myself talk back here, Colin. Apologies, guys, I'm here. Do I have another tab open or is this me?
It might be another tab open. I
Alrighty, I
don't.
don't hear it anymore. Apologies for that, guys. I think I had YouTube open. Even I was watching Status Coup before this, just like all of you should be. Again, today's Wednesday, May 17th. Big show today. First, we're going to start off in the first hour here. You've got me. We're going to be going through last night's Unity Council town hall meeting that happened in East Palestine, Ohio, actually just down the road in Negley, Ohio. At that meeting, we had stakeholders from both Ohio and Pennsylvania, folks who are residents dealing with health complications. They had invites out to members of Norfolk Southern, members of the EPA, members of city government. Unfortunately, not all of those seats were filled at the meeting. We'll get to that in a bit. At that meeting as well, we also had a bunch of new testing information that came out from an independent tester. Some of that testing information, as you might have seen in the headline of this video, surprise, surprise, more toxic dioxin testing revealed in East Palestine, both in soil samples as well as in home furnace samples. So we'll definitely be getting into some of that. And also just a kind of a good glimpse into where the folks of East Palestine are feeling that this kind of situation is heading at this point in time. Thank you for the reminder there, Colin. Smash the like button if you are just joining us right now so that we can get this out to more people. It might sound like a silly thing to ask for, but a simple like button really does help the algorithm, really does help get this reporting out to more folks. After we go through some of the highlights from last night's meeting, again, that occurred just outside of East Palestine, Ohio, we are going to be joined by a guest from East Palestine, Eric Kaza, who you have seen on the channel before. I interviewed he and his partner, Lori, in their home in East Palestine just a couple of weeks ago when Colin and I were on the ground there. That was my third trip reporting on the ground in East Palestine. We're looking to do, additional trips down the line here. Because unfortunately, the further we dig into the story, the more ridiculous things we find. We've been teasing a big story for a while now. I can tell you Jordan was up basically all night on the phone with a source, trying to piece together some of this additional stuff. We really are getting close to the truth on a lot of these things here. It's the kind of thing, though, that we need help to be able to continue this sort of investigative reporting. So if you are able to help, we've been on a month of May member push to try to get 100 members in the month of May. As you can see right there, we are at 60. We're on track. It's only a couple days after the middle of the month here, so I think we are on track to do it. Let's see if we can get another 5 or 10 members today during this live stream to help push us over that 100 member threshold. So again, we'll be first starting off with that town hall meeting, then joined by resident Eric Kaza, and then after that, I'm going to be giving an update on the debt ceiling debacle that's going on. We'll see some clips from President Joe Biden today on what he said about this, and unfortunately, looks like potentially cuts to social safety nets, work requirements coming in. Unfortunately, we don't see those sorts of things coming when it comes to big banks getting bailouts, when it comes to the airlines getting bailouts. But when it comes to folks who could really use the help, well, sorry, Biden's not worried about that. It seems like he's going to be willing to negotiate with Republicans to add some of those restrictions in. And then even more right after that, Kim Brown is going to be on starting at 6 p.m. Kim is going to be covering updates on Cop City going on in Atlanta. So definitely stay tuned for that. I know I'm going to be watching that to see the updates from Atlanta. But without further ado, let's actually get started in on this East Palestine town hall. I alluded earlier on that the town hall set up by the Unity Council purposefully invited members of city government. They also invited members of Norfolk Southern as well as the EPA. Colin, we can go ahead and play that first clip to show who actually showed up for this community-led town hall.
We invited representatives from the EPA, Norfolk Southern, and the city. And this is their seats. So you can see who did show up and who did not. We gathered everyone here today to stand with us because what happened here cannot be forgotten. Our demands and stories need to be heard, and our homes and families need to be taken care of properly.
So in case you couldn't see right there, this is yet another town hall event that Norfolk Southern had an empty chair at. Norfolk Southern, on time after time after time, essentially at this point, have not shown up at any of these community events, despite the fact that they say they're going to, quote, make it right for the residents of East Palestine. You would think making it right would be actually attending some of these town halls that are led by residents of East Palestine here to hear the concerns of the people directly from the people. Instead, unfortunately, as we see right there, nobody from Norfolk Southern present. Also notable, nobody from city government, the city of East Palestine, this small town, was there. The mayor was not present at the town hall. No members of the city council were present at the town hall to sit in that chair. That is a massive, massive, I don't even know what you want to call it. It's not a failure of communication, but where are these people? These folks are supposed to be representing members of East Palestine and advocating on their behalf. Instead, unfortunately, that seat was left empty. This follows on some earlier reporting earlier in the week that I did on Monday's live stream, where we actually saw text messages coming out between the mayor, the fire chief, and others who were questioning the residents who actually took the initiative to go to Washington, D.C. and advocate for residents of East Palestine, saying like what they said what the fuck, essentially, to the residents who were actually sent to go. They were like, those are the people who are going to represent us. I'm sorry, but the mayor and others present very much have the capability to get their own butts to Washington, D.C. to go advocate, so they should not be getting upset when residents are actually taking the initiative to go and do it themselves. So again, notable that those folks were not present. The next clip here is actually going to be the list of demands that members of the East Palestine community who are on the Unity Council. The Unity Council is made up of folks from both East Palestine, from Negley, just down the river where the polluted water was all going, from over the state line in Darlington, Pennsylvania, and beyond, a mix of stakeholders all on this Unity Council trying to get their message together and seemingly doing a very good job of it at this meeting. This next clip is a couple minutes long, but it is the list of demands from the residents of East Palestine, what they are hoping to get out of all of this. Rather than me read the list for you, I would much rather you hear it directly from them. So Colin, we can go ahead and play clip number 2.
So I'm going to read these demands that we co-created together as Pennsylvania and Ohio representatives. We have a full list that we will be releasing to everyone later today. I'm just going to do the main summary points. Number 1 is the most important. We need Governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine, to immediately declare a disaster in East Palestine, Ohio, and so that we can seek full support from the federal government. Mike DeWine must assign an emergency declaration or a major disaster declaration to allow the United States President Joe Biden to provide critical emergency resources to the community to ensure the public health and safety for the present and the future. I'm just going to stress how important this is. The state of Pennsylvania cannot do this. It has to happen with the officials in Ohio. So really right now, if there's one thing we can ask everyone to do is put that pressure on Mike DeWine. Number 2 is relocation for anyone who feels unsafe in their home, coordinated by the federal government and funded by Norfolk Southern. Our demands outline that this would be for temporary or permanent relocation, and also this would be for anyone who owns or rents. And in the case that people cannot return home, we are asking that they are financially compensated fairly. Demand number 3 is the ability for affected residents to hire independent scientists to complete air, water, soil, and any other relevant environmental testing funded by Norfolk Southern. Right now, of course, anyone has they can do that, but unfortunately, as we know, it's a financial constraint. So this needs to be paid for by Norfolk Southern, and we need to have the choice, as we live in a democracy, to choose who we want to do that testing. Demand number 4 is the ability for affected residents to seek independent medical testing, monitoring, and or treatment funded by Norfolk Southern. So as we know, This combination of chemicals has never been released. There's no data on this currently that's going to help us. What we need to do is make sure that we have that data for the future. So they need to be funding that. We need to choose who we want to go to, who's going to be helpful. There needs to be the options for people to find doctors that are educated in environmental toxins. People around here, the average doctor is not. So they don't know what to even be testing for and what to look for, and that's a major problem. Demand number 5 is that Norfolk Southern must start to treat all affected residents equally and supply residents with proper filtration devices. So this demand is really about how they've been treating the community and communicating. So as of right now, most things are only available to people within 1 mile. I don't think chemicals, stop at a 1 mile zone. So in order to treat us fairly, we need to give access to more individuals. And then I think it's also important to note that this is an aging community, and by only releasing things on the internet and on Facebook and not going door to door, we're really leaving out elderly voices who, if they do not have younger relatives, they might not know what's going on here. So we really need Norfolk Southern to start thinking about every member of this community. And then of course, most of us are still living here. So whether they send filtration devices for air or water, we just need to be taken care of right now. So that's what we're asking them. And then our final demand is about how they're disposing of this waste. As some may know, it's going not too far down the street, a portion of it, to Hermitage Thermal Toxic Incinerator. And while we wish that this didn't have to go anywhere, we also don't want it to go right in our backyard. We've already been exposed, and we don't know what it's going to be like for that to continue being exposed and for us to just get hit over and over again. So we ask that they reevaluate where they're sending that, and of course, doing that in a safe manner. And then we have some disclaimers as well. So if they obey these demands that the community is asking, it doesn't mean that people can't take legal action. I think that's really important, that no one has to sign away their right to their individual case. So we think that's really important, and everyone's been talking about this 1 mile zone. And we've gone back and forth, is it 5 miles, is it 10, 15, 20? And what we came up with is we're just using the term affected residents right now because we don't know all the data. We don't know where the plume went. We don't know where the water went, where the wind blew. And so right now we can't assign a mile radius to people's health and safety. And also, when we talk about how will Norfolk Southern compensate people, fair market value. As everyone knows, we are blessed that this community, we still have affordable homes, and people aren't going to be able to get that elsewhere. So really, outside counsel needs to be considered when they're appraising people's homes for fair market value. Even if they say they're giving us the price of before the derailment happened, we might not be able to buy homes elsewhere. We might not be able to rent elsewhere. So really, everything needs to be considered on an individual basis, but we can all agree that people should have the right to relocate for something that we didn't create.
To me, I don't know about to you all in the comments, it seems like you all agree. Let me know if you do. Those seem like pretty reasonable demands to me. If you ask me, Governor DeWine should have had an emergency declaration. Let's see, it's May now, so not 1 month ago would be April. 2 months ago would be March. 3 months ago, over 3 months ago, it would have been very, 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 very easy, literally the stroke of a pen, for Governor Mike DeWine to declare an emergency here, which would free up additional resources from the federal government. The federal government also has not done nearly enough here. Obviously, we've seen President Biden dragging his feet on this issue, kind of dealing with everything at an arm's reach. Pete Buttigieg, when he showed up in town, the first trip that I had in East Palestine, he showed up at like 7 o'clock in the morning, did an unannounced quick press conference, got some photos, with his hard hat on at the derailment site, and basically left. We haven't heard much from him since, maybe 1 or 2 strongly worded letters. That's a whole bunch of nothing, unfortunately, for folks. So easy, number 1, emergency declaration. That should be an easy win for these residents. For whatever reason, Mike DeWine is not doing that. We'll see. Number 2, relocation coordinated by the feds. Colin, I see you here.
Real quick before you get too far in, we have a bit of breaking news.
Oh.
10 miles from East Palestine, right now, a train car was reported on fire. Over it, you can see there the locations there.
Midland Road, Rockport Drive, Ohioville. Interesting. On fire. Have you seen an article or anything for it?
No, that's the first thing we've seen. Jordan will update me with details, and I'll pop in once we find out some.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Colin. Again, breaking news: a train car on fire in Ohio, not super far from East Palestine. More reason why all of this is so important, and these demands from residents are so important. In addition to actual legislation being passed, to prevent something like this from happening again. I don't know where the hell we live that train cars can be literally on fire driving around through small towns across America. Again, this happened in East Palestine last time. It could happen in your small town next. So the second major point here, relocation, coordinated by the federal government, but paid for by Norfolk Southern. Right now, to date, people still need to go beg Norfolk Southern for money to relocate temporarily. You need to go to the people who caused your issues in the first place by no fault of your own and ask them for the help. That is clearly wrong, and that should clearly change. This would be an easy win. Again, that is a no-brainer that the residents of East Palestine should be getting already, but they're not. A couple of these other ones regarding testing, whether it be independent testing for your homes, your soil, your water, that should be paid for by Norfolk Southern. But I agree, you should be able to bring in your own independent testers. Why would these people have any reason to believe the contractors that have been brought in by the railroad to come in and clean up this mess? Those contractors are going to find exactly what they're looking for, which they don't want anything to pop up, because guess who's paying them to do it? Norfolk Southern, the people who caused the issue in the first place. Again, and then there's a couple other points in here, but medical testing and treatment absolutely needs to be paid for these residents and folks inside of the zone. And I just saw a note in here too that said it was actually in Pennsylvania. My apologies, but it is very close to East Palestine. All sorts of ridiculousness going on. These demands should easily be met. They are not. Also, I see we've got one super chat right now. I will read all the super chats at the end, but we'll do this one real quick right now. If you want to help us out, that is one way to do it. Thank you for the $2. Thanks for the coverage. The U.S. abandoned the Rust Belt. Unfortunately, I agree with you. It does seem to be the case. I also want to say that we've gotten a couple new members. Welcome, new members, Trina, Paul, and Jennifer. That is 3 new members to add to the list. If you want to join and become a new member, statuscoup.com/join is how we're able to continue to get back on the ground. Again, I've been in East Palestine 3 times already. Jordan just got back from a trip in Flint and Kalamazoo. We want to continue to tell these stories. We're working on some real breaking stories on this related to the East Palestine derailment and controlled burn. There's a reason I'm putting quotes here. So if you're able to help us out and join those 3 new members we've already gotten here, Trina, Paul, and Jennifer, please consider doing so. But let's move on to the next clip here. This is going to get into some of the soil samples and the creeks samples of the creeks. We can go ahead and play clip 3, Colin.
So, and then this is a graphical comparison of Bull Creek control versus Sulphur Run. Bull Creek is 1.5. Sulphur Run was 130. And I'm just illustrating this about how you do it. So, yes, this dioxin is ubiquitous in the environment. But again, it's like the DUI comparison to simplify it. What's not ubiquitous is that level from what we're seeing. Again, we need a lot more data to better understand what's going on. That's why in the ideal world, a transparent collaboration with all government agencies and the responsible party, with everybody working together for the community. That should be the clearly only choice that makes sense.
And there we were looking at comparisons of 2 creeks, both close by to East Palestine. One of them, well, they're both like in and around East Palestine. Sulphur Run is the one you've heard a lot about. Sulphur Run is right on ground zero, essentially. Bull Creek is, not super far away, but kind of just outside of the plume. And you can clearly see the difference in dioxin levels between a normal creek that would be exposed to, everyday environmental, concern, right? Dioxin does exist, like the EPA is saying. There is dioxin around, right? But this is a massively higher amount, extremely elevated levels of dioxin in Sulphur Run, which is obviously running right from ground zero and runs right through the community of East Palestine, literally running through folks' backyards, under businesses in town. There are actually a series of tunnels that Sulphur Run actually runs right through the heart of downtown East Palestine. Residents that I've spoken with, some of them have lived right along the creek. Some of them have been able to relocate, but others, one of them in particular, Moo Blake, who we've spoken with, who's been having a hard time getting relocation, as well as Jordan, who's had a hard time getting relocation. Both of them still living, right along Sulphur Run and not qualifying for relocation as far as Norfolk Southern is concerned. That is a major reason why point number 2 of the demands that residents are making, relocation coordinated by the feds, is so important. Let's keep moving on here. We're going to go on to clip number 4 clip number 4, Colin.
And here is a furnace filter comparison. This is from a home, a control, where the plume was not. Family had no health symptoms, versus a home where there were symptoms where the plume was. You got a 0.24 and a 4.1.
Again, there, a similar type of chart. So you've got kind of a baseline home with the regular level of dioxin compared to a home that is inside of the plume with extremely elevated levels in comparison to show what a normal level would be with what the real level would be. Again, this is coming from an independent tester, not from the EPA. Similar comparison to the creeks. Now we have that yet again, this time with furnace filters. I'm actually working on another part of this with furnace filters. I've got some home testing that I've been going through with a chemist. I'm going to be speaking with that chemist later this week, so we'll give an update with more of that coming along the line as well. We've got a couple more clips that I want to show here, and then I'm going to be bringing on resident Eric Kaza after that. Eric lives in East Palestine. You've seen him on the channel before, but first, Colin, we can go ahead and play that next clip.
Hello. Okay, so by a show of hands, how many people have had health symptoms since the derailment? By a show of hands, how many people have had serious health effects since the derailment? How many people have been able to get tested for vinyl chloride or benzene? And how many people have tested positive?
The results aren't back yet.
Waiting for some results, so that's not showing a good. How many people feel that we should have free health coverage for all in the affected area? How many people are uneasy about their city or well water? How many people have trust in the EPA? How many people have trust that NS will make it right?
I don't have trust in the state EPA because my crew done pollutants my area. The state got rid of it.
How many people don't feel safe living in East Palestine or surrounding areas since the derailment? And that's all I got.
How many people in here are demanding that Governor DeWine declare the state of emergency and get us the help that we deserve?
Should have done it long ago.
Long ago. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to ask the audience that we haven't covered here?
Yeah, I mean, the reaction of how many people in the room trust the EPA, 0 hands up. That was very, very telling. Colin, we're gonna just play one more of them. We'll skip the last one. We'll play one more of them, and then I want to get Eric on here so that we can get his reaction to all of this.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Tammy Chai, East Palestine resident for 27 years. I have a couple questions for everyone. How many of you want to move?
want to or feel like we're forced to.
Well, right. How many of you are actively trying to move but are finding it difficult financially? So my question is, do you feel there should be something like a PPP loan program to help people get to a new location so that we don't have 2 mortgages to pay while we're trying to get out of our current situation? I just think it would be fair for our government to consider that, and maybe that's something Governor DeWine.
So, I mean, between both of those clips, you can see a room that really has come together and is united on so many of these issues. I want to say one thing, too. Initially, I was going to have resident Candace DeSanzo on, who was the first person doing the raise your hand if questions. Unfortunately, just before this, Candace actually had to bring one of her young kids into the ER having breathing issues. She spent about 2 hours in town. And now her young child is not feeling well. I'm really hoping that it's something that goes away quickly here. So thoughts definitely with Candace and her family. We'll hopefully have an update for you, tomorrow or something to ensure everything is all good there. But we do have resident Eric Kaza joining us now. Thank you so much for taking the time, especially last minute like that, Eric, for jumping in here.
Thank you for having us again. I really appreciate you guys covering this because it's, like I said, the media was showed up last night at the Unity Council thing, and the clips that they brought out was short. They didn't cover hardly anything that we addressed.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely happy to see media showing up, but that was one of the questions I was going to ask. Is I'm curious what they will do with some of those clips. And I want to say too, I had seen a couple people asking if folks are interested in watching that entire town hall. River Valley Organizing has that posted on their YouTube channel. Colin, maybe if you get a second, if you can find that link for folks and put it in the comments so that they can go watch the whole thing after our live streams here today. But I guess, Eric, you were in the room last night. What were your kind of initial your thoughts on the whole thing? How do you think the event went as a whole?
I think as a whole, I think it was very productive for what we had to say. I think that we had 100+ people show up. It met expectations. We also we reached out to every media outlet that we knew or had in our contacts, and most of them showed up. A lot of them left kind of early or after they got their little bit of what they needed. One thing that I can say about the media is that I've noticed lately what is being covered is our fair. We're having a community fair for East Palestine Fair. It is being sponsored by NS and the city conference, which they're giving free rides. That's the thing. So it's going to bring in so many people from these surrounding areas that we haven't even got to test it.
Yeah, that seems outrageous to kind of for no real reason bringing in additional people into the town of East Palestine when there's no doubt that a decent number of folks in town are still getting sick. I mean, I spoke with you and Lori just 2 weeks ago. Lori's been having all sorts of issues. You've had issues, and on top of that, there's dozens of others who are still having.
One more
these
thing
issues.
that I'd like to add.
Yeah.
Last night while we was having a community, the press conference, the East Palestine School brung in the Columbus Orchestra and a science fair, and the text message I got was it's being sponsored by our friends, the EPA, the ODNR, and it was a slap in our face. They also had the city council meeting last night at the same time we're having this. So they're trying to do everything they can to gaslight us, to put us in circles.
Right. And from what I remember, it seems like city council meetings are ordinarily on Mondays, are they not?
They also been having them during the EPA meeting at the church that we've been having every Thursday.
Right.
So it's It's a runaround around here.
I mean, basically, when was the last time that you saw city officials actually like responding to questions about this sort of thing? The city hall meeting, it's been a little bit, but the city council meeting that I went to a couple months back, they basically moved on from the
The only thing that I've
about it.
seen from the mayor was the text messages that were brought out about my sister. It was effed up because she was the one that went to, she was the one that went to Washington, D.C.
Right.
I seen the fire chief do the first message in a long time, and he was short, blunt. He used the word "yep." There was no, he said that no first responders that he knew of were sick. And then the text messages came out that he knew that there was first responders sick. He tried to bring in the CDC, and they told him to treat this as a house fire.
Right.
This is all in these text messages. And then he did a news thing yesterday. I think it was on Channel 27 News, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but his whole attitude changed. He interacted.
And now, was this the fire chief yesterday? Or the
Yes.
mayor? Yes. Okay.
It was the fire chief that did the other news interview yesterday.
Yeah.
We haven't heard from our mayor.
Right. That first interview you referenced with the fire chief, and apologize to folks, I don't have the clip, but I'll try to characterize it a bit for you. The fire chief did a local TV news interview, and what Eric said, and I saw it as well. He was asked point blank, like, are your firefighters still dealing with health effects? And literally one word answer, no. Like, how is your town moving on and dealing with this? We're moving on with it. Like, answers that were less than a sentence long. Clearly didn't look like he wanted to be there. I'm not sure, honestly, why he took the interview. But clearly, as you pointed out, the fire chief, at least not on camera, was very concerned about the health and safety of his firefighters, as he should be, via those text messages when he was kind of complaining, like, the health department told me to treat this like a house fire, which is obviously ridiculous. A house fire is nowhere close to the same as setting a bunch of chemical cars on fire to essentially explode in all of yours back and front yards, essentially. Outrageous.
There was the EPA did show up at that Unity press conference last night. To be honest with you, we didn't ask them any questions. We've heard enough of them. It was actually Alfred. He was Mark Durno's boss. We just wanted him to hear from the community. We already heard their run around.
Right. Yeah. So
we invited the mayor. We invited NS. We invited everybody to come to that, and they elected not to come.
Yeah. I guess maybe you have the answer to this question, maybe you don't. What are some of the next steps forward? I mean, last night really seemed like a good solid sense of unity. There was a lot of residents in town from like lots of different groups of people and friend circles and all of this sort of stuff, kind of all in the same room, seemingly all agreeing quite a bit on all of this stuff.
Hopefully that brung more people together as far as some of the opinions that's being thrown out. Again, like I said last time, I get bashed on Facebook or I get restricted on Facebook. The thing is what Mr. Smith brought up, in them PowerPoints and them slides. The EPA should have started doing these fingerprints day one.
Right.
Day one. And now that he's doing these fingerprints, they're hush hush. Actually, we were supposed to have another meeting on Thursday, and they canceled.
Interesting. So the EPA, like weekly meetings, they canceled this.
Yes, the CDC they were supposed to bring in the CDC because what Mark told me, he said that the only body that can bring in the CDC is the EPA. So we requested Mark to bring in the CDC. And he gave us the runaround. Now they're using raw onions for vinyl chloride. They're using
as the list of things of why people could be testing
Gatorade.
Positive, right?
There's a bunch of things that he threw out there. We get newsletters every day, or probably 3-4 times a week in the mail. That they're handing out coloring books that says telling our children about asthma, the causes of asthma, remedies. It's like, and they're using a fish as a mascot.
Right. Yeah. The gaslighting at this point is disgusting. They're trying to like trick you all into thinking it, but it's like it's so abundantly obvious that that's what they're doing. I don't even know why they're trying in the degree that they are. So
Even when
this
Dr.
Thursday's, I was gonna say
Even
this
when
Thursday.
Dr.
Oh,
Smith, oh, I'm sorry.
no, you're fine. You're fine.
Even when Dr. Smith brought up the furnaces, and he took a sample from Bull Creek, and then he compared it with the same dioxins that are in Sulphur Run. You've seen by the things that how big of a difference.
Right.
But there's nothing wrong. I brought up to Mark Durham, I brought up to Mark about our sewer drains. The next day, they put these gray things down in the sewer drains and put these, I looked them up, they're magnetic settlement mats. They're up and down the streets now. The next day, we asked him, hey, did you test down in there, air test, settlement test, anything down in there? He said no, because they all lead to Sulphur Run, and Sulphur Run's clean, so there ain't no sense of testing them. And it was like, wow.
Yeah.
Now, what if this is why people are getting sick?
Right.
What if it's coming through their sewer drains or whatever that go down into that?
And I want to get into, too, I mean, I've heard this from you and Lori. I've heard this from dozens of other residents as well, especially now that folks are, unfortunately, including yourself, testing positive for this vinyl chloride metabolite. Every time you kind of call to try to get information as to like, okay, now what do I do? You're all kind of getting the runaround of, oh, call this person, call that person, call that person. And you had all essentially requested at one of these past EPA meetings, I can't remember if it was the last one or the one before, to have some sort of like, hey, can we get a healthcare one? And that was supposed to be scheduled for Thursday. And now the EPA is canceling it. Yes. So you are all still left in the dark as far as what do I do? I've tested positive for vinyl chloride, or for some folks, vinyl chloride and benzene. And now you're all left with zero answers as to what to do. The EPA had scheduled a town hall meeting with members of the CDC supposed to be there, and that's gone.
Yes. Yep, it's done. And then here's even a bigger thing, is I've been checking down at the creek probably 3 times a week. I went there 3 days before this happened. There was not a fish in this creek. It's shallow. It's maybe 4 or 5 inches on both sides. There's one deep hole right where the walking trail starts. I went down there 3 days later. There is 4 carp, and I've fished these creeks all my life. I've never even seen a carp in this creek as long as I fished it. There was 4 carp as long as my arm, and thousands of minis. So I brought that up at the last EPA meeting with the water soil. He said, oh, they're starting to come back. I was like, well, there's no way that the fish traveled up this creek in 3-4 inches of water for number one, and there ain't no way that 4 carp got in there in 3 days. It just don't happen like that. And I got to run around on that question also.
Yeah. No, it's I mean, I've said this before, you've said it before, you've heard it before. It's like thing after thing after thing, where they're just like, oh, these people are going to forget about it or move on and pay attention or not pay attention anymore. Clearly, after last night's showing at that town hall meeting, y'all had a great turnout. The room looked full to me. Lots of folks in the audience engaging with it, participating. Eric, thanks for joining. Do you have any other thoughts you want to share before I let you go?
I just want to share one other thing.
Yeah.
The older gentleman that was there, that you heard in the background, he brought up, and he's been to almost every EPA meeting. His wife died. He was blown up by a Scud missile. When he went back to Persian Gulf, I guess, or Afghanistan. This man has fought with the EPA. He has talked to the Seattle division. The runaround and the lies that the EPA, it all started with the Ohio EPA, and this is a proven fact. It started with the Ohio that dropped the bomb here, and then to turn it around and to find out that this old man can't even get the help that he's asking for. It is ridiculous. I mean, to see these veterans, I'm a veteran myself, but to see these veterans standing up there and can't get no answers, especially at his age, can barely walk.
Right.
This is. I mean, all we can do is sit back and fight, and people like you, and I'm going to say this again, it's people like you that I got all of the respect in the world for. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing for us, because if it wasn't for yins, we'd be lost.
Well, I appreciate those kind of words, but frankly, you know, folks like you are the only ones who are keeping this going too. So you guys got to keep it up. I know you all are fighting hard to continue to get the message out. I'll reach out to you after this, but I might ask for you to, if you're able to, try to help connect me to that gentleman. I did see that in the town hall, so I might reach out to see if he can help get us
he's on
connected.
some of the news. I'll get his name and stuff.
Perfect.
I'd also like to add one more thing.
Yeah, you're
Listen,
good.
everybody else, the fire chief, it's proven fact that he wasn't even here the night of the train derailment. He didn't come in until Saturday. We're trying to fight to find out, because we're getting a runaround on this too.
Yeah.
Who was in command that night?
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't even know who was in command that night. We can't even get those answers, you know. And
No, yeah.
I mean, there's answers, questions after questions that we're getting around. But again, like I said, I appreciate you guys. I really do.
No, thank you so much, Eric. Appreciate you taking the time. And yeah, have a nice night.
You too.
Alrighty, y'all. That was Eric Kaza. Again, big thanks to him for taking the time. And we're looking into a whole bunch of other stuff related to all of this. I am going to make one quick push here. We've got almost 200 people watching right now, over 200 people watching. Please smash the like button to help get this out to more people. Again, we've just gone through now last night's East Palestine Town Hall. In a little bit, I'm going to move on to some of the stuff regarding the debt ceiling debacle going on. But first, I mean, our independent reporting on this story, on places like Kalamazoo, on places like Flint, Michigan, and the list goes on, is only possible by folks like you actually helping us out by becoming paid members. And frankly, the mainstream media has the resources to be able to cover these stories much, much better than we are able to do. But for whatever reason, they are choosing not to. You heard it from Eric right there, that last night there was a bunch of media in the room. Most of them left early and really did not focus on many of the real stories going on in that room. Put together just quick little packages and didn't really focus too much on the main concerns that these residents are actually having. I actually looked at CNN's homepage today. Colin, I don't know if you can pull my tweet from earlier up. I looked at CNN's homepage today to just be like, oh, I wonder what's going on CNN. If you can make the image full size. This was the homepage of CNN today. The headline story was Prince Harry and Meghan involved in a, quote, near catastrophic car chase. I looked into the article. It basically was paparazzi followed their vehicle. Nobody got hurt. That's the story. That is the main headline story. On the right, we've got the Obama's marital challenges in their early relationship. There's one real story on there. I guess the Supreme Court refusing to block assault weapons bans in Illinois. But if you look through more of the little topics on the right there, this doesn't look like CNN. This looks like TMZ to me. They've got the resources to cover real stories, like what's going on with these folks in East Palestine, and instead are reporting on Prince Harry having paparazzi follow him around, okay? Obviously, they're covering other stories here, but what the hell? We are not going to focus on BS stories like that maybe will get CNN some clicks, but I don't know who the hell is interested in that sort of thing. If you want real folks to go on the ground, spend time in people's homes like Eric's home, like Candace, like all of the other residents in East Palestine that we've been talking with, like residents in Kalamazoo that Jordan's been talking with, membership is the only way. We've already gotten 3 new members during this today. So we're at 63 versus the 60 we started with. If you're able to become a member, statuscoup.com/join, and you've got my word that I'm not going to do some bullshit reporting on Prince Harry getting followed by paparazzi and putting that on the front page of Status Coup. Jordan would he would fire me before we got to that point anyway. But ridiculous. They've got the resources to do this. They're choosing not to. I did see at one point Colin put up a thing on the screen here saying that train that was on fire over the state line in Pennsylvania has been dealt with. The fire is out and the situation was under control right now. For folks who are wondering, I did see a couple comments asking about that. I don't have all of the details on it, but it sounds like that situation is now under control. Now I'm going to kind of switch gears here and we're going to move into the debt ceiling for a little bit. And then after that, please stick around. Kim Brown has got a great show for you. She's going to be covering updates on Cop City and Atlanta going on. So you definitely don't want to miss that at all. And then one more thing, if you do become a member during the show, we've got our monthly members call coming up this Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. That is something only members get to join in on. We basically get everybody into a Zoom call. You can ask questions. Jordan will be there. I'll be there. Colin will be there. Others will be there. You might see Tina there. Ron. I don't know exactly who's all going to be there this time, but lots of members of the Status Coup crew. There you go. We'll be there, and you can ask us questions. We can kind of give you some hints as to what we're looking into for future stuff down the road. That's another perk of becoming a member. Alrighty, without further ado, we're going to get into the debt ceiling update. Colin, if you want to pull up the NBC News article. Sorry about that. Needed a sip of water. Alrighty. President Joe Biden on Wednesday said he is confident congressional leaders can reach a deal to raise the nation's borrowing limit before the clock runs out on a potential default. Quote, I'm confident that we will get an agreement on the budget, Biden said at the White House, calling the talks, quote, civil and respectful. He added, quote, everyone came in good faith. I'm sure they did. Quote, we are going to come together because there's no alternative, he added. Quote, every leader in the room understands the consequences of failure. Biden insisted he was not negotiating to raise the debt ceiling and said the talks were about spending. Asked whether he would accept works requirements for some federal aid programs, a potential sticking point in the negotiations, Biden kept the door open, but said he would not accept, quote, much beyond the Clinton-era policies he supported as a senator. Biden says he's confident on a budget agreement, but listening to his press secretary this morning, she was talking about him needing to cut his overseas trip that's going on short. You're not cutting a trip short if you're pretty confident in the deal that you're working out right here. Colin, we can go ahead and play that clip.
What about work requirements specifically are you still considering? It sounds like it's still on the table and you haven't ruled it out. Which would you be willing to accept?
Well, I'm not going to accept any work requirements that's going to impact on medical health.
Actually, Colin, it was the clip above that one, if you've got that one.
Work requirements except not anything of any consequence.
It's not this one either. Sorry about that. It should be a clip with Karine Jean-Pierre. If not, that's all good. It's the first one in here. My apologies, folks. I'll drop the link here in the chat.
Yeah, I think I somehow missed that one.
It's okay. Alrighty. I'll while you get that up, it's in the chat now. So Karine Jean-Pierre essentially was kind of talking this morning about how President Biden is actually cutting a trip short to kind of stay and focus on getting the debt ceiling limit raised here. Looks like Colin has that clip here, so we can go ahead and play that when you've got it ready, Colin.
It's no small thing for a president to cancel a portion of a foreign trip. He, of course, is still going to the G7 in Japan, but no longer making the stops in Australia and Papua New Guinea. And I know that's a region that the administration has said you really want to focus on, in part to curb China's rising influence. So take us behind the scenes, if you will, and just what went into the decision for the president to opt to not make the second part of this trip?
Look, as you know, in the statement that I put out yesterday, the president spoke to the Prime Minister of Australia to offer up, let him know that he had to postpone that second part of the trip, and also extended an invite, a state visit to the Prime Minister to clearly come here. And so that is something that both sides of our teams are going to discuss and have that conversation. He also spoke to the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea to let him know that we were postponing. So look, the president understands how important it is when we're talking about the budget and a responsible bipartisan budget, but also the debt limit, which we should be done without conditions, should be done without negotiation. That's something that the president has been very clear, but we have an X date, right? We have an X date that the Treasury Department put forth. And so we got to get this done before the X date. And that's to Congress. Congress needs to get this done. And so the conversation that he's been having with them is saying, hey, this is a critical moment. You all have to really come together and really deal with an issue with the debt limit that has been done 78 times since 1960. We are not a deadbeat nation. So the president has held the line on that. And also, we are having that second conversation of making sure that we have a budget that gets to his desk that he can sign.
Well, of note there, she says that it should be done without conditions or negotiations. Unfortunately, as we're about to hear, it doesn't seem like President Biden has been able to pull that off so far. When he was asked about needing to, negotiate on adjustments that could regard work requirements for different social safety nets and things like that, Biden said that it seems like at least some of it's up for negotiation. Colin, you can go ahead and play that next clip.
What about work requirements specifically are you still considering? It sounds like it's still on the table and you haven't ruled it out. Which would you be willing to accept?
Well, I'm not going to accept any work requirements that's going to impact on medical health needs of people. I'm not going to accept any work requirements that go much beyond what is already. Well, I voted years ago for the work requirements that exist. But it's possible there could be a few others, but not anything of any consequence.
Not anything without any consequence. I don't know what the hell that means, without any consequence. I would imagine in a lot of cases, the consequence here could be things ranging from people losing their, welfare benefits, food stamps, having a hard time eating, having a hard time getting access to medical care. They might not be consequences to Joe Biden, but they certainly would be consequences to the folks that they will directly affect. And on that same note, it doesn't seem like Republican Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy and Joe Biden were in the same meeting based on McCarthy's response to all of this. Colin, we can go ahead and play the clip with McCarthy.
On work requirements, we accept not anything of any consequence.
I don't understand anything that has consequence. This is a senator who voted for work requirements. Listen, I think when you're sitting in the room and you're listening to the American public, why wouldn't he want to help people get out of poverty? But listen to really what he's saying. So the decision he's making in his mind is, if he doesn't want to have something that has consequences, he wants to borrow more money from China to pay an able-bodied person who has no dependents, not even to look for a job, not even go to school for 20 hours.
Now, obviously, I disagree with McCarthy's characterization there, but that doesn't seem like somebody who is very close to some sort of negotiation with President Joe Biden in making sure that, standard safety social nets that are available in every developed country in the world for folks who've fallen on hard times should be able to have access to, rather than looking into ways to appropriately tax billionaire corporations, including Norfolk Southern and all the other huge banks and all of these other things, to make sure that they're taxed appropriately in comparison to what regular folks like you and I are paying, and don't have a million loopholes for all of these big banks. Rather than let's use the banks who were just bailed out a couple weeks ago. SVB Bank, where's their work requirement to make sure that they were on the up and up? It seems like they didn't have one. Where was the work requirement or the requirement for the airline industry to provide any actual update when we bailed them out during COVID and said, hey, we're giving you this money to make sure that you have your staff stay on, keep your staff on. And where was the work requirement there? Because basically what happened was the airline industry went through and laid off and got rid of a whole bunch of people. And now the airlines are an absolute disaster, as we've seen just a couple times even this year, with massive delays, staffing shortages, all of these sorts of things. Where are the work requirements for these, corporations and wealthy individuals? But, when it comes to unfortunately poor folks, oh no, we got to make sure that we got to ride them to make sure that these folks are in line with everything. And I'll say that these programs are already difficult to take advantage of in a lot of cases. You need to jump through a lot of hoops to be able to get access to a lot of these things. Personally, I was on Medicaid for a while, and every month I was on the verge of like, oh, am I going to lose it? Do I need to go get health insurance? Did I make $20 more than I was supposed to? Because then I literally get kicked off of it, need to go find a marketplace plan. But it's extremely unclear as to how all of these different little pieces to this work. Beyond all of this, though, okay, this is a debate over the debt ceiling, right? If you watched the video that we put up earlier today with Steve Grumbine does a much better job of explaining it than I do. He is our MMT wizard. He talks about all of the different ways that the debt ceiling, this argument is really kind of kaput. It's mutt. We've got the ability to do a couple different things, whether it be the whole mint the coin angle of this, where we can literally mint $1 trillion coin to kind of solve some of these issues, all sorts of stuff like that. Let's actually hear it directly from him, though. He's going to do a better job explaining it than I will. Colin, we can go ahead and play the Steve Grumbine clip.
As the corporate media wrings its hands continuously as it counts down the timer to apocalypse with the debt ceiling looming large, it's important to understand so much of what's going on right now is really much ado about nothing. It's about relitigating existing spending that's already been approved by Congress, signed into law by the president, and now expected to be acted upon. Contracts have been signed. People's Social Security payments are on the line. We're talking about keeping government open. We're talking about keeping pension plans going, et cetera. So why is the hubbub about the debt ceiling coming up every single year? Well, it goes back to a act of Congress in 1917 called the Liberty Bond Act of 1917. And this was expected to facilitate and help the president to actually make spending happen more efficiently and quickly. Because at that point in time, every single bond that had to be sold had to be debated. In fairness, we know that bonds really don't have to be sold because bonds do not actually finance the government. This is a statutory law that says, hey, when you go to deficit spend, when you use the Federal Reserve to deficit spend, you have got to sell a corresponding bond to make up the difference. This right here is an anachronism from the gold standard. It really, quite frankly, doesn't need to be there at all. But a president is, by law, expected to make sure all laws are executed exactly as written, to make sure that all bills are paid. And that comes from the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution that says that the U.S. debt shall not be questioned. In other words, debt that we take on as a government, as a country, that debt is really just contracts we've signed, agreements we've made. When we make an agreement to spend money, that money is now contractually obligated to go to the individual. If we don't pay those bills, it will bring about a depression, an absolute collapse of almost all facets of the U.S. economy, including the global economy, because many of the contracts we sign have far-reaching impacts from the military, which you may want to cut, to regular spending that we've promised to developing nations. In the end, every aspect of our government is dependent upon us being able to be a creditor that can be considered trustworthy. And if we don't pay our bills, these bills right here will create a condition that will not only impact the U.S. as a lender of last resort, as a financial safe zone, but it will also crush the little people who depend on this for their Social Security checks. That's right. Social Security checks are paid for by the Treasury. And if we don't have the debt ceiling lifted, those payments would be hurt as well. In the end, the way past this is clearly to either A, invoke the 14th Amendment and say we are going to pay our bills on time because the Constitution supersedes any law that was written before. The other factor here is that we could mint $1 trillion coin if we want to get cheeky. Minting $1 trillion coin is perfectly legitimate and legally possible, as the Treasury would simply authorize the mint to go ahead and create this coin. It would then in turn deposit it at the Fed, that would then deposit into the Treasury's general account, which would ensure that all payments are made going forward in perpetuity. The other option, which is not on the table right now, is to literally eliminate the law that was written in 1917. So there you have it, my friends. The debt ceiling is much ado about nothing. It's relitigating spending that was already approved by Congress and should not be a thing. It's right now being used as a weapon by both the GOP right now and, quite honestly, the Democrats. But in the end, it really does come down to about 10 of the Trump styled Congress critters that are literally trying to exact a price, trying to peel back spending that has already been approved. And this, my friends, would be a disaster.
there it was directly from Steve Grumbine himself. He can say it better than I can, so I figured it'd be best to hear it right from him. With that, I'm going to bring on here Kim Brown to join here. Kim, how's it going?
Lewis, I'm really enjoying what you've been broadcasting here today, and I couldn't agree more with Steve. My only argument is that I wish Democrats would kind of hold Republicans by the gonads the way that Republicans do to Democrats when it's time to exact out their agenda and not help the opposition succeed. So
I agree with you there. I'm unfortunately I'm not holding my breath for that, but I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying there. Kim, what do we have to look forward to on your show coming up next year?
So listen, everyone, as much as the catastrophes that continue to occur in East Palestine and Kalamazoo and Flint, as has been well covered here on Status Coup, we are dealing with one of the most pivotal struggles happening in Atlanta with the Stop Cop City movement. If you care about environmental injustice, if you care about over-policing, the further militarization of police, and the suppression of speech, the ability for protesters to go out and dissent without being charged as domestic terrorists, literally, the Stop Cop City battle is something that you need to be following and paying attention to. We're going to be joined with organizer Marlon Couts from the Atlanta Solidarity Fund talking about the comment event that they had at the Atlanta City Hall on Monday, where hundreds of people literally showed up, Lewis, to voice unanimous opposition to the Stop Cop City project as the Atlanta City Council debates on whether or not to move forward on some major funding, taxpayer dollars, by the way, that would go to over police the citizens and the residents of Atlanta. So the people are standing up and speaking out against that. I mean, this is an anti-fascist movement happening right now in America in 2021, if there's ever been one. So please join me after 6 o'clock as we get into this. I'm also going to talk about Elon Musk. He stinks. It's like I can smell him through the screen.
Yep. No, he. Yes, we see too much of him, unfortunately. I'm curious to hear what your take is on all of it. I'm definitely going to stick around for it. Folks, if you're watching right now, you don't need to go anywhere. You can literally stay right here, and this stream should eventually connect right into Kim's stream. Kim, thanks for coming on and giving a preview. I'm going to go ahead and read some super chats, and then folks will be headed right over your way.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim. We're going to get to the super chats here. And on the topic of Cop City as well, I will say, I know there's been some conversations between Jordan and Tina about actually getting back on the ground in Atlanta as well. That is a story that Kim's going to be covering right now, so we're trying to stay on it. That's you've heard a lot from Tina on that. You've heard a lot from Kim on that. So they want to continue reporting it. The way to continue to be able to do that sort of stuff is by becoming a member. StatusCoup.com/join. I don't know exactly how many new members we were at during this call, but if anyone else still wants to sign up, StatusCoup.com/join while I read through some of these super chats. So with the first one here, we've got from HM with $2. Thanks for the coverage. The U.S. abandoned the Rust Belt. I agree with you there, unfortunately. Most of the mainstream media will not go cover anything in the Rust Belt. They do not go on the ground there. They do not understand the lived experience of most of Americans who are living in that part of the country. So I agree with you there. Thanks for the super chat. Another one, $5 from Warrior Pride 65. Biden will talk for an hour and a half about journalistic imprisoned in foreign countries, but not do a darn thing about disasters in towns in rural America. Talk for half an hour about it. I don't know that Biden talks much about actually trying to help imprisoned journalists such as an Assange or somebody like that. I do agree that he doesn't give a damn about disasters in towns in rural America. I would like to see, for free speech issue-wise, him try to actually do something about those journalists, but I agree that things in the United States should take priority here, and he needs to be concerned about a lot of these small towns in the U.S. Thanks for the super chat there. Fly Chomper Fly, $2. Marion Williamson would fix this and is for Medicare for all. Thank you for the super chat there, Fly Chomper Fly. We've got another one, super sticker, Sheila Dice, $3.99. Thank you, Sheila. We've got another one from Warrior Pride. At what time did Democrats give up on rural USA? Seems to me like quite a while ago here at this point, but yeah, thank you for the super chat there. And finally, we've got Tony D. Kudos to the residents for becoming so active. Thank you all very much. With that, I am going to let you go, and we'll have Kim take over from here.